Yesterday, actually, I've enjoyed these days. It perhaps took a poll ballot yesterday, so we have a local election. So in that opportunity, I have searched through the websites about the local public local office and any others. So now we have quite fine systems through the terminal of a public administration. You will be available of a local congress, for example, even at the level of a district in Congress City or Eastern Province, and 4 or 5 elected congressmen has collaborated and also is incumbent to check and balance about the local organization. So they are actually kind of a small Congress which represent the will of the people in Eastern District. And as a public policy student, you also need to consider its efficiency, cost and benefit analysis in serving the liberal institution of liberal democracies. So we actually implemented this type of a public administration upon inauguration of new constitution in 1989, and the pre-rule was fairly stressed by former deceased, actually national heroes, and President uniquely chosen from the basis of this region, Taejun Kim. He was actually aspired for kind of a exhaustive democracy through the local province and others. So his idea was actually accepted by constitutional drafters in 1989, and we now have a public feast. How have you exploit this precious chance last day? Perhaps took a ballot and might get outside activities, mountain climbing or other, spend time with family members. Thanks. And also, very many stories have actually come to mind about this local election. The one person who perhaps would be a supervisor of a local election from the opposing party may not be trained to the president or know any positive response from the proposal of the late president. Actually, that scene might not be kind or unfriendly. Nonetheless, it still shows a good symbolic event about neutrality of supervision, election supervision. They must stay neutral and no personal act to create any possible prejudice or perhaps the impression of bias quite not so good in terms of fair administration of elections. And actually, the rule and many relevant laws need to be respected in the place of public electoral ballot. So, what you know, one important statute, the Fair Administration Act of a national election. And what the statute actually includes the scope of many general nature provisions about administering local and national election. The scale of election has been one attribute. Nonetheless, still make it coherent through a level of institution, level of election, presidential election, congressional election, and local election to be regulated by that act. And on the delegation of the act, the election officers might write the rules, which could be applied in specific issues, which was not clarified in the statute. So they may undertake the role to fill the void of statute or insufficiencies about a prescription, which actually matters at the floor level. So in some cases, you might be denied of access to the public ballot if you do not bring your ID card with you in the ballot place. That is required by operational laws and rules created by agencies, pushing agencies. And we have an independent election agency, which would now entertain the constitutional status. One independent chapter was assigned for organizing a commitment, actually several provisions stipulated. So that means the importance of public election to sustain our faith of a liberal democracy. Free election is most fundamental to sustain our system. And you might be disgruntled or in some complaint, assumed to file a complaint about the kind of unreasonableness or irrational, which is in some cases unnecessary in your field. So that point is one tangible example. We consider the most desired paradigm about rule making. So the abundance of rules, as I introduced in the last class, will not necessarily mean the rule of laws have been actually perfected. In some cases, they might confuse and might restrict the adequacies of action, which could be increased in some cases by a field officer. A field officer may be placed in most proper situation to address the issue. So we don't need in that aspect to make the rules any specific, more specific or detailed to confuse the fair deliberation of field officer. How do you agree? Nonetheless, it is still a principle, you know, the creation of rules is quite consequential to facilitate the fair administration. So arbitrariness could be reduced. As in your good guess, suppose, since we have a uniform standard about implementation of public policy, if you have a rule. So that is a great point. We now generalize to require a response by making a rules and others, standards. Nonetheless, the practical effect need to be reflected more prudently in if they would have some assessment about difficulties in dealing with the issue. So, the volume of rule making is actually one exponential phenomena. And we could not answer in any one definite way about this reality. So we have many rules that would do good. That is a wrong assumption, I see. And the contrary is also not correct. Absolutely. So it is a matter of relativism, as you see, and some wisdom need to be exercised if we emphasize any proper result. We consider 2 points, for example, the strain on institutional capacity. So consider the resources and physical feasibility of a fiscal arrangement, for example, and budgetary scheme or a plan of long years, and personnel, span of personnel and in number and geographical distribution, and the need of demand of a policy and many environments, actually stakeholders, and the kind of conscription about premeditation of the nature and scope of regulated community. The field might be diverse. For example, OSHA is one good example for the protection of a safety and health in workplace. And actually, the organ is quite active, as you see, along with the EPA, and kind of public expectations is high about two organizations, and therefore we see most on a position often from the regulated community, and many complaints about this practice has long been notorious, as you can see. For example, one criticism may point to the virtually non-action about health in the workplace. They put the almost emphasis on public safety in the workplace. So, a stack of rules have been created in concerns of that issue, safety. Nonetheless, one other important responsibility assigned to the organ has been neglected seriously to be critical by many public opinion leaders. EPA also is notorious about its stringent regulation and what is activism about engagement by creating a rule and making public relations. Nonetheless, the industry would also be chilled to which it prefers to advance criticism about it. And the Congress, as you know, is an important source to create this strain on institutional capacity. So the public agencies need to be alerted to interact with Congress about shaping a good, most effective paradigm about the issue, and should be consistent through the commitment of two branches in addressing the challenges or issues. The agency resources, experience, expertise, and relations with the external interests are generally a scope of factors we consider the attitude of rulemaking by public agency. And of course, the dependent variable would be the volume of rules produced by the agency. I have illustrated graphics to depict the timeliness of enactment. So the volume and timeliness are double to evaluate the performance of organization. And the public eyes have not been rules of that task force. So the preoccupation with production of rules obscure the fact the rules are worse than useless. If they result in an inconsistent, incoherent regulatory program that cannot be understood by the regulated community or enforced by government agency in the field.